Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. This is Double One Radio Gamescast. We're here every week. I'm your host, Ryan, and today I'm joined by my illustrious crew of co-hosts, Alex,
Hi.
Brett,
I've had to sneeze for the past 5 to 6 minutes.
and Wyatt.
I have not had to sneeze past 5.
Well, I'm glad you have been absolved of that basic human body function.
Me too.
Yeah, it's good news. You know? Alright, we have a lot lighter news roundup than usual, which means we can actually start to talk about other things than news and video games. So,
no way.
we're putting on... We've had a topic sitting in the wings for almost a month now about nostalgia games, so we're going to be talking about that. But first, as always, we gotta give an award to something, right? Because we give awards now. That's our thing. So, the award we're giving this week is the Double One Radio Gamescast Aged Like Milk Award. Now, I have 3 entrants. You are welcome to throw in additional ones once I have thrown these 3 out there. But remember, constructive criticism. We're not here to trash people. We're just here to say the facts. So, our first entrant is the Duke Nukem Forever. I think for pretty obvious
I knew
reasons.
it. Why did I know it?
I doubt any of
Why?
us have played this game. But based on reputation alone... What'd you say, Wyatt?
Was that game ever not dated though? Like,
Not just dated, but aged like milk, right? Like, got worse over
time made it
I mean, it
worse.
was old milk when it came out.
Well, then that only
Well, now it's
heightens the
rancid
effect of
old
time
milk.
on the milk. Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't mean when it came out, because Duke Nukem Forever was announced to like 10 years before it came out, and it got progressively worse.
12 actually.
Yeah, well, there you go. You're proving my point. All right, our next entrant is BioWare's Reputation.
Oh. You're gonna
Oh,
make me choose between those two and something else?
I think this has to do with their lack of great things coming out recently. And we don't know what we do know what they've got cooking. They've got Dragon Age cooking, but it's been cooking for a long time and we haven't seen anything. So, a little skeptical.
And updates for Anthem.
And updates for Anthem.
woo!
And our final entrant, there were a lot of... See, this entrant could have been a lot of things.
Yeah.
All relating to Bethesda. But I think the
Oh.
best one is Bethesda's monetization. Their business models, their practices. It's gotten continually worse. They're re-releasing $60 ports. We got the entirety of Fallout 76, just the entirety of it.
Getting a tiny bit off topic, just a one-sentence thing. I am hopeful that may change now with the Microsoft.
Hopefully.
Yeah, that's something we're probably going to talk about it, because we haven't talked
Oh.
about that.
Perfect. Okay.
But these are our 3 entrants. If there are any surprise nominees, feel free to throw them out. No?
See,
Not that I can think of.
I
The
don't know
gameplay of Pokemon
That's a good one. That's a good one.
hasn't changed
actually.
in like 15 years.
All right, and the
Ooh.
gameplay of Pokemon. That's our 4th entrant.
Can I add one?
Yep.
Madden. That entire series.
Yeah.
I think that
The
we can broaden
monetization,
that
the
to just
gameplay,
be
the
sports,
everything.
monetization of sports games in general.
What sports game have become?
All right, so between those 5 entrants, we're going to go down the line and give a vote. You can give like one sentence on it if you really want to, if you have a burning passion for why this should be the Aged Like Milk Award of the Year. How about you, Alex?
What an award.
Where's your vote going?
I came here to kick butt and chew milk.
And I'm all out of milk.
Because Duke Nukem Forever has taken it all.
All right, we got a Duke Nukem Forever. Brett,
Nukem stole
You're in the
my
spotlight.
Duke Nukem stole my milk, Alex.
Oh.
I mean, I never really had much like attachment to them, but just like I'm friends with a lot of people that kind of buy Skyrim on every possible port imaginable, and every time it happens, I'm like, man, I love you, man, but that's stupid. And it's just kind of infuriating that they could just kind of get away with it. And of course, all the many other things that they've done, I've kind of like kept up with it a lot. Again, I don't really play Bethesda games, but I think that's my milk.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with your milk too, Brett, because
All right.
Bethesda's monetization is really grinding my gears. I really just want to see a new game, and that's not happening anytime soon. Wyatt,
Show us your milk.
serve us our glass of rancid milk. What is it?
See, I
Shake
can't
it like a
decide.
DQ
I can't
blizzard.
decide what's worse: something coming out that was like already so dated, like even when it first came out, or something that started from a really high point and then just sank. You know what I mean?
It's
Like,
you're
what's
stuck
The
worse?
between-
monetization strategies to me just never had a place in time at all. So I don't know if.
But
least to me,
given
that's-
given that Duke Nukem came out in 2012, that didn't really have a time and place either.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been back, in like the mid to late 90s, but there you go.
You're
Like
stuck
early
between
2000s.
a milk and a hard place.
What's your vote?
A milk and a nuke place.
Mm.
Why? This is the game part of the show. We don't linger
I
on this. You're lingering on this.
Look,
Pick one.
look. I'm gonna have to go with Bethesda just because I feel like they were like a studio that was like that understood. people who
They
played
had a
games.
higher starting point.
They were just like such a relatable company because it felt like they understood the people who played their games really well, and that disconnect, that thing that I feel like made them so unique, is just completely gone now. It's the same thing with Blizzard, where it's like that, like, we understand you people and what you guys want and what you value is just gone. And
Yeah.
I think that's very sad.
All right, we have our winner. It is Bethesda's monetization has aged like milk, to the surprise of I think no one.
No.
But there were some other good nominees in here, which means we now can completely forget about that until we inevitably do something with this giant list of awards.
I mean, they peaked with Skyrim on Alexa, and they just went downhill after that.
Yeah, that April Fool's video really was the peak. All right, so we got a few things. We're gonna blast through the Tokyo Game Show stuff that is, I think, interesting to a lot of people. There's a lot of Tokyo Game Show stuff, and as we covered last week, we're gonna be focusing a little less on nitty-gritty news, a little more on high concept news, which means we're going to mention that there was Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity gameplay, but we're not really going to go into it. Because you can just go watch the trailer. It looks pretty fun.
Other than it looks fun, yeah.
Yeah, that's about the gist of that. Again, Monster Hunter Rise gameplay. Nier Replicant got a trailer. Another one. Nier Replicant version 1.22474487139, which is their title.
Good.
Yeah.
Very, very big fans of Kingdom Hearts, I see.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know. I'm excited for Nier Replicant just because I really like Nier
same.
Automata, and I played a tiny bit of the original Nier and never finished it, so it'd be cool to finish it. We're getting Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires, which is dropping the open world of Dynasty Warriors 9, which was pretty much universally perceived as bad. So yeah, they're dropping that, and they're turning the gameplay into something hopefully better. We got more Balan Wonderworld features, more Cyberpunk about the design of Night City, some Capcom looking into Xbox One and PS4 releases for Village, but we're not certain about that yet. Resident Evil Village is going to be more exploration heavy than 7, was also confirmed.
Nice.
We saw the Devil May Cry Virgil thing, and he's going to be on Xbox One, PS4 via DLC. That DLC has been confirmed to be $5 on PC at least, which is pretty good
Nice.
for like a full character.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yep. All right. We're getting apparently a Resident Evil show on Netflix.
Yeah, I saw that.
Huh.
God, oh my god.
It's going to be a CGI episodic series starring Leon Kennedy and Claire
no.
Redfield.
No,
Oh.
here's the thing.
What kind
To
of
be
CG are we
fair,
talking about?
It looks
It looks realistic.
like it's just from. It looks like it's from like a good game, like good
Yeah.
game CGI. It's not like the
Like
new
the
Ghost in
Final
the Shell
Fantasy movie?
CGI. That but good.
Yeah, I would say close
okay.
to Final Fantasy movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna Kingdom Hearts trash fires now to Specific getting a demo. that's about it on the Kingdom Hearts rhythm game. Some more Scarlet Nexus stuff. With Scarlet Nexus, the interesting thing with Scarlet Nexus is it's gonna have 2 campaigns and 2 protagonists, so you can play two different campaigns. That's cool.
Huh. Ryan, doesn't that sound familiar?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder.
Oh.
Shin
Oh
Megami,
God, no!
Shin Megami Tensei 3 is going to have a merciful mode, which I believe is supposed to be an easier way to experience the game because it's notoriously difficult. And the remaster is probably going to be played by a lot of new people.
Game adding an easy mode?
The spin-off Nier mobile game is going to be coming to the West in Europe at some point.
A what mobile game?
The Nier spin-off mobile game.
Yeah, I haven't heard literally anything about it. I don't know if it's good or bad or what.
Yeah, there's a Ni no Kuni mobile RPG. There was some cool talks from the devs of the medium about how it uses the next-gen stuff for sound.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Very interesting. The Xbox Series S apparently has already been reduced in price in Japan as well. So I don't...
Yep.
By about $28 American. So it's an interesting little thing. Flight Simulator is going to be adding updates that do a nice update to different areas of the world. So the first one's going to be Japan, and it's free and coming out the day this podcast is out, actually. So if you're listening and you like Flight Sim, go to Japan and Flight Sim.
Something that doesn't change what we're reporting on after we've already reported on. That's a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, more medium stuff that looks pretty cool. We saw some stuff about a few characters. And yeah, that's the gist of the Tokyo Game Show bullet point announcements, unless anyone has something else they want to bring up.
I do.
All right, Brett.
Because it's not like a completely industry destroying amazing looking game, but I don't know if you guys have ever played, I think it's like Godzilla Save the Earth or something for
I played that game. Xbox. I played so much of that game.
Isn't it fun?
It's so good.
Well, Ryan, you'd be happy to know that it seems like other people in Japan really liked it because they're making almost like a spiritual successor kind of game where it's just 4-player, all the characters.
Oh, we're losing Brett, but
oh no,
he's talking about Gigabash.
Bootleg Sentai things, there's just bootleg kaiju.
Oh,
yeah.
hell yeah!
And it looks like fun.
Yeah, I'm always skeptical about these 4-player things after there's been a ton of them that look pretty good, but that come out and just aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Override Mech City Brawl is one that came out that's just not great. It's okay, but it's just not that interesting, and I think things have kind of failed to capture that Godzilla essence. But from looking at the trailer for this, it does look to be pretty cool. I'll give you that.
It looks like fun. Well,
so
what's going on?
Brett's just having some issues. It's okay.
It's okay.
It's the demons in his internet. Oh. All right, that's our Tokyo Game Show roundup. We want to talk a bit about. There was something that Xbox did that Alex mentioned earlier that I just blanked on. I don't know why. Xbox did
Microsoft
something. Microsoft acquiring Bethesda. That's why. That's the thing. Huge news.
That incredibly interesting and implicative event in what will be video game history.
Maybe.
I can hope.
The thing that I'm concerned about is Microsoft has said they're going to be pretty hands-off with ZeniMax, so I'm a little worried things just won't change. And that this will just be like a publishing move, essentially.
I think they're going to have less I'm hoping they're going to have less problems with money because of this.
I think that the biggest question mark is what they've said is they're going to stick to their exclusivity agreements in terms of Deathloop and the other one, which I can't remember off the top of my head. But the biggest question mark is what is going to remain available across different platforms. Are they going to keep big things like Elder Scrolls and that kind of thing? Are they going to keep that within Xbox's ecosystem, or are they going to have this thing where they're going to keep those larger franchises multi-platform, but they're also going to have studios work on new things that are just for
I mean, I can all but guarantee the big three are going to remain, not Xbox exclusive. But the mini, the smaller multitude of studios that Bethesda and ZeniMax were over are probably going to be more taken in by
Yeah.
Microsoft to get a better
I think
just
Arcane's
monetary
going to be
deal.
probably doing some cool Xbox exclusives after Deathloop comes out. Because they have said they're going to be honoring the exclusivity windows for Deathloop, and there's one other game that a ZeniMax-owned studio was working on for PS4 that is also getting that treatment. And I think it's both of those games are not huge system sellers, so it's not really a big concern. So Microsoft was like, it's probably better to not buy out the contracts for those.
I do find it kind of humorous that now PlayStation has 2 exclusive games that are kind of published by Microsoft.
Yeah, and I think both of
Yeah.
those games are
that
timed exclusives. I don't believe they're fully exclusive.
Are they?
I think Deathloop at least is. But that could
I can't
be
picture
outdated
Deathloop being
news.
fully exclusive.
Because nothing in Deathloop's advertising is super PlayStation heavy, and PlayStation
it's a timed exclusive.
PlayStation usually goes pretty crazy with the advertisements when it's an exclusive like Horizon.
Oh, the other one's Ghostwire Tokyo, which is
Oh,
also
Ghostwire.
Oh yeah.
If any of them stays PlayStation exclusive, I could see Ghostwire being it, just because that tends to align more with the primary
Their
Japanese
vibe.
audience of PS4 and PS5, at least from historically speaking. So that might change, but
Phil
we'll see.
Spencer has said that in terms of which games will come to other platforms, it's a case by case basis. So
yeah,
they don't. So they either don't have a full plan yet, or they're not willing to talk about it yet.
I'm betting they don't have the full plan yet, because
But
with something like Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6, we just don't know right now.
I think they're too. I just feel like they're too big to be exclusive.
It's is Microsoft willing to give up the amount of people that would buy the game on PS4 for exclusivity?
I don't think they would be.
Like their whole image for the past couple of years has been very pro-consumer, and to take away games that have been previously multi-platform.
But imagine them taking them away, putting them on Game Pass, and then trying to make Sony allow Game Pass on PS4s and PS5.
Well, yeah,
that's rather anti-gamer of you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that if they did that, that would go completely against their whole pro-consumer image that they've been setting up very well, I might add, over the last couple of years. I just feel like that would be the wrong move.
Wouldn't be a very pro-gamer move of you, Microsoft.
No.
It would not.
Yeah. We also did learn that Sony's Spider-Man Miles Morales is the only way to get a remastered version of the original Spider-Man on PS5.
What?
There's no
what does
direct
that mean?
upgrade, which is a weird decision.
Huh.
Yeah, that is very Sony of them.
I was gonna say, I will say, we were just talking about Microsoft, but that does sound like a very Sony move.
Yeah, I don't fully get this move because it's just odd. Because people are either way going to be buying the new game. So I think they're just trying to squeeze that extra $10, $20 out of people to buy the version that also has Spider-Man original in it.
I alternate between PlayStation and PC, and I don't see myself buying the PS5 for a while.
Yeah,
really.
I will probably be buying it pretty early on, but that's because in reality it's approaching being better than my computer.
Oh,
at least the SSD speeds are. So
I was actually able to somehow get a pre-order.
What a magical little boy you are.
So it'll be interesting, I think, to see because the launch of any new console is such a precarious kind of first step.
Yeah.
Because you just have no idea what's around the corner, what's actually coming up. I can think of so many things that were talked about, when the PS4 and the Xbox One were coming out that never saw the light of day. Absolutely no one remembers Deep Down, which was this weird Capcom Souls-like thingy with some rogue-like thingies in it. It was really weird.
Capcom Souls-like.
Capcom really does have a Souls-like called Let It Die, but it's very different from what Deep Down was.
No, it's not this. Deep Down was. It was
it was still dark
everywhere.
fantasy.
It was their benchmark for this is what like this is what the next generation will look like, and it just never came out.
Yeah.
Funky.
I was always curious, and like stuff like Scalebound never happened. So
Oh,
Rip Scalebound.
yeah, I gotta remind people about Scalebound. That's a.
So sad.
That's
I wish
part
we
of
could put that for
Xbox's Play
Aged by
Nowhere
Milk, but it just
program.
doesn't exist. Okay, so Among Us 2 got canceled, so the devs can add the features that were going to be in Among Us 2 into the first game because the game had a huge boost in popularity.
why was there going to be an Among Us 2? Was that because it was, I guess, somewhat an old game and it just
Among
started
Us
to gain
2 is like
popularity?
3-4 years old. Or Among Us
Oh.
is 3-4 years old.
Yeah,
It
it's
just
an old
got
game.
hugely popular on Twitch recently,
Mm.
and is now one of the best-selling games on Steam. So it's doing well for
to
itself.
this day, still have no idea what it is.
It's a hidden role game. It's like Mafia.
It's like Trouble in Terrorist Town, kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Baldur's Gate early access got delayed by a week, which is confusing.
Oh no!
'Cause what's that? I don't know what that week is giving them, but
We have to fix all of the battle animations, and they have to rebalance this entire weapon tree. We have a week to do it. Just give us a second.
I mean, it's
guys.
also
Come on.
launching into early access.
Build from January, guys. Let's
It's
do
not
it.
a full launch; it's early access.
That's even
So,
weirder.
what my suspicion, having worked on a project that did do like Steam pages and whatnot, is that it's something on the metadata end of Steam and them like needing to fill out certain things because they might have had like tags. Because on Steam, like if you have something like full controller support in there, you need to have full controller support for everything you can do in the game. Which is why a lot of games, if they have even like a login screen for an online account, won't have that tag, even if they do have like otherwise full controller support. Is because of little stuff like that. So it might have been something along those lines that did this, or it could just be other circumstances that we don't know about. Yeah, that's our news roundup, I think.
Oh.
Unless anyone's got surprising news they've pulled from weird places.
It's been a lot of fun to dissect the meme that Microsoft is going to be purchasing Sega.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
It's
It's-
a meme. It's not real yet.
Oh,
but people
okay.
don't know if it is.
People
Don't
are
worry.
trying to game theory this whole thing, and like they're looking at all these different clues as to like, oh, could Microsoft be purchasing Sega?
I was going to say, we're talking about dissecting memes. I just got over Stickbug. Don't talk to me about Microsoft purchasing Sega.
Yeah. All right, so now we can move into our nostalgia games discussion. So what we're going to be talking about is just, in general, games that we enjoyed when we were younger. And younger doesn't necessarily mean, like, a little baby. It means games that you have nostalgia for. And nostalgia for
You got
games can
memories
be
attached to
pretty recent. To be honest, like, as long as it's hitting that benchmark, if you have some reason of having nostalgia of it, you can talk about it as a nostalgia game. Although I'm sure a lot of this is going to be about stuff that is older. I know for me personally, Metal Gear. Hey. Huge series. Also just re-released on GOG if you've never played them.
This is true.
Ooh.
You
Metal
should.
Gear 1 and 2 are
Everyone
available
should.
on GOG now.
Probably a really good discount if it's on there, too.
Yeah, they're cheap. They're old ports, so they don't run amazingly well. You don't really have to do anything, but they're not like remasters or anything. They're the old
Okay.
games.
But there's no
It's-
finagling required.
Yeah, from my knowledge, and the UI is outdated because it's like a old version of the games, but still fun to have those on PC.
Interesting fact about that is that some of like the game over screen, all the things on it are not like PNGs or anything. They're like just straight vector images. So if you have like
Yeah.
a really good resolution running, it'll just be the most crisp thing in the entire game. There are just some things in that game that are just vectors instead, which is really weird.
That's
Cool.
a super interesting decision. I love it when we find old stuff like that out about older games because of new tech.
Yeah.
We also have just recently the Mario All Stars collection, which ties in nicely to this discussion. It wasn't planned that way, but it worked out that way, and that's pretty fun
did.
because I've been playing Sunshine and having a lot of fun with it, and 64. How about
Playing
you guys?
64 again.
Yeah, 64 holds up pretty well. Pretty well. The camera's still pretty bad, but aside from that, it holds up well. How about the
It's-
rest of you
it's-
guys?
My
What's
first
your nostalgia games, Alex?
my first experience with 64 is on the DS version.
Mine too.
But
Mine too.
I wouldn't call that a nostalgia game necessarily.
Really?
Oh, yeah, I still haven't finished it. Um, but it wasn't as big a part of my gaming childhood as some other things, and I am going to pull out the first example that I'm talking about right now, and it's a plastic bag full of Professor Layton games.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first one that I played was Unwound Future, and that was pretty early on in middle school. And what I can remember, one of my first game memories. Maybe besides Pokemon, but what was that? Diamond. So yeah, the Professor Layton game series, specifically Unwound Future, uh, which was the third game in the original trilogy, I think. There's that, and there's the somewhat meme entry of I don't know if you guys have ever played the educational video game Math Blaster before.
Oh, have I?
Have
Oh,
I played
have I?
Math Blaster?
Math Blaster.
Oh yeah. Math
Yeah,
Blaster? Oh.
that spiky blue-haired dude and the multiplication tables that kept tripping me up.
I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm trying. I don't have a lot of like super detailed memories of it. I just remember the logo, like the splash screen, and just every time that we were able to play it at school, I just like freaked out.
Oh, it's one of those.
Yeah, it was a side-scrolling shooting math game where you played this blue-skinned, blue-haired guy in space. And now I want to
Right.
try to find it again because we're bringing it up.
You're bringing it up. You're the one bringing
Yeah.
this up, not us.
This is your
Don't
fault.
put this on us.
It is entirely my fault, but it's your topic.
How dare
It
you.
You're
is-
right.
yeah,
You're
Oh snap! You brought
I
this on
guess so.
yourself.
I guess so.
Snap.
So those are the two that immediately jump to mind.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
well-
wish I had gotten into Layton games. I was more of a Phoenix Wright person.
Oh,
What was that, Wyatt? You had something to say.
Yeah,
I saw that.
Nostalgia games are weird for me because just because of how my parents felt about video games when I was a kid. So
Same.
I remember it's just so weird because it's like I don't really have a distinct time where I like remember playing my first game, but like I remember getting an N64 when I was really really young, and then my parents just didn't like it in the house, so they got rid of it. And when I played on that,
what?
yeah, they didn't, yeah. And the
Such
two games that I
intelligent
played,
reasoning.
the two games that I played, and I don't really remember them, so I don't really count them, but it's a fun little story, I guess. But the two things I remember playing was the original Smash Brothers with my brother,
Oh.
and Ocarina of Time, and just my brother and I not being smart enough to get outside of the village because we didn't know what to do.
Good.
And then I have other memories of for the longest time every summer we would go to Oregon because we have a bunch of family out there, and there was a PS2 out there, and I remember playing. We had a PS2, but we had a bunch of PS1 games. So I remember playing like that PS1 Spider-Man game a lot, and not really figuring out how web swinging worked. Oh god! And then the first Crash Bandicoot game I ever played was Crash Bash. Yes, please feel sorry.
Really?
Wait,
That was
which
my first-
which one's Crash Bash?
It is the Mario Party ripoff.
Oh,
Crash.
oh
Yeah.
dear,
Gaming.
worse than racing.
But then after that, it's like I just didn't play games for the longest time. I did have a Game Boy, which brings me on to my first actual nostalgia game,
Yeah.
Advance Wars 2, the greatest Game Boy Advance game ever made, and you cannot convince me otherwise.
I played tons of Advance Wars too.
Dude, Advance Wars 2 is one of those games where it's like it doesn't do anything super unique, but everything it does so well. It's such like a solid just well-made like turn-based strategy game, and I love it to death. I know all of like the themes to all the characters, and like just the theme song, just everything about it, all the maps. Like I love that game to death, and the fact that it was left in the dust makes me very sad, and I will never stop whining about it until I get another one. Moving on. The first time I really got like into gaming, though, like serious about it, was when I got an Xbox 360 for Christmas, and we played a lot of ODST. We played a lot of Halo 3.
Classic.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Halo
And
3
then-
is definitely on that list.
The one
then
true game to buy with an Xbox.
And then a lot of memories of playing like Oblivion and Skyrim, and countless Call of Duties. Whenever my brother's friends would come over, and we would all just play Call of.
Yeah, I think for me it was definitely the Oblivion was my most important one because I would watch my dad play Morrowind when I was really young and not understand a lot of it because I was a tiny child at that point. And eventually, when Oblivion came out, I was old enough to like understand what it was and actually play the game to some degree. And I always loved that we got the copy of Oblivion that was still rated T. So a lot of people don't know this. Oblivion had 2 ratings from the ESRB. When it released, it had the rating of T, but eventually, with all the blood and everything, they adjusted the rating to be mature. So
I did not know
some
this.
people will have a rare copy of Oblivion for whatever console that has a T on the ESRB logo and not an M.
Wow.
So
But,
that was like the original runs of the game were that, and we had that copy. And I remember it because one of the copies we had, I think, because I eventually got it for my PS3 when my dad had it on his Xbox. So when I got it on the PS3, I got one of those like pre-owned T copies, but it had an M in Sharpie over the T to mark that, and I thought that was
Good.
I
hilarious.
think
So-
the person you were talking about earlier would be interested to hear that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolutely hilarious. And it's also, I think Oblivion for me is like still going back and playing it. It's the Elder Scrolls game I enjoy the most.
Mhm.
Compared even to Skyrim, because like Oblivion is definitely more dated, but it's more of a true RPG and offers a lot better choice.
It feels like there's more content and choice to it, just in general.
Yeah.
Well, because you were talking about like you watching your dad play Oblivion, and that reminds me of like there were so many times when like my brother would invite his friends and they would play zombies, and because I was so young, I would get too scared to play, so I would just watch them play. So I don't-
Absolutely.
But dang it, if I don't remember so many of like Nikolai and Dempsey's voice lines from that game, because there was always just 2 of them, so it was always just Dempsey and it was always just Nikolai. But I remember so many of their voice lines and just like saying them to myself and practicing them in my head because I would always watch them play, and they just had the best like dialogue.
I do remember a lot of Call of Duty Zombies that I played in Black Ops 2. But that was, I think, kind of past the nostalgia point for me, at least for Call of Duty. Although,
Yeah. Well,
I think the one I have actual nostalgia for is World at War.
Oh, yeah.
Because I played that one a lot. I think it was my first like real Call of Duty game that I knew was a Call of Duty game. And I just played tons of the campaign and the zombies and that.
Such a good campaign.
Wait, is
It's
that one of the
interesting.
older World War II ones? Or
I think it's Vietnam. Is it
Oh.
Vietnam?
No, it's
Huh.
World at War is World War II.
Is it?
Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm super hazy on the actual
Vietnam
story.
was Black.
I just
Ops.
remember playing tons of it.
Yeah,
Oh no, you know
would
what? I think
be-
Vietnam was the spin-off I played on PSP.
you would be
Because I
forgiven.
played the PSP Call of Duty.
there's a PSP
Is it
version?
the only version you played?
No, I played the original,
Oh,
the
okay, I
actual
was about to
version.
say,
There is a
ooh.
PSP version of a Call of Duty game.
There's a lot of similar like themes of like jungle levels and like the enemies like hiding and popping out and stuff. So
They're
I
in the
remember
happy little
as a kid
trees.
I was confused about that too because I was just like I don't know which war this is in, but okay.
Well, it's interesting.
It
'cause,
was
like,
Call of Duty Roads to Victory on the PSP,
oh, yeah.
which is still World War II,
That's a title,
but
baby.
is a spin-off that is super like just okay and oddly good for a PSP game. Like the PSP was oddly powerful for when it came out.
like
Call
that's
of Duty false flag operation.
like that's not a great Call of Duty. You know what? It's still not as bad as the worst Call of Duty title, which is the Big Red One, which is a real title for a real game.
Wait,
It's called
the
Call
Big
of Duty.
Red One.
The Big Red One is an actual title of a Call of Duty game, not even a
referring to,
portable
like,
version.
Russia or something.
I guess.
I
Okay.
hope you're kidding me.
But yeah, that's probably the worst title.
Good.
Yeah, it was
The
one of
Big
the
Red
names
One.
for Call of Duty 2.
Yep.
It was a side story expansion. That
Okay,
released
so
for
it wasn't the
Call of Duty
main
2.
game title.
No. It was a side story.
No, this was before they like dropped the.
It's the Spider-Man Miles Morales of Call of Duty 2.
What a man. What a stretch.
But it was, I found it really interesting. Like when I was thinking about nostalgia games, it's like, what's the cutoff date of like what I consider to be nostalgic? And I feel like after thinking about it, it's like it's more about like what games in my past that I have a lot of fond memories of or were important to me. So it's like less about because I can go on and on. It's like the first PS4 game I ever played was Assassin's Creed 4, and it like blew my mind just how like amazing that game looked. Or I remember, oh my god, I even had a PS Vita back in the day, and I remember the first PS Vita game I ever played was also the first Uncharted game I ever played, which was Golden Abyss.
Oh my god, you played Golden Abyss?
All right, I'm going to be honest with you for a second. For a PS Vita, like a handheld system, that was a pretty good Uncharted game.
Dude, the PS Vita had some killer games. I still have them.
Yeah.
They did such a great job of like taking Uncharted and like just crunching it down to a mobile system. Like they did a good job, I think. It's super impressive.
I don't think I ever got to play Golden Abyss, but I played tons of. I think Brett is probably the only one who might have also played these. The Hatsune Miku PSP and PS Vita games.
No.
You haven't played those?
What? I'm sure Alex has. Not Alex Labella, but
I figured Alex would have forced you to play them at some point.
No, not yet. I think you know what? We were having a conversation about the PSP, PS Vita, because I was emulating something from there, and then she was like, "Oh, check this out," and I was like, "I knew it."
They're incredible.
There had to be one.
There is the one on the PS Vita has over 200 songs, and they all have music videos.
Yeah,
it's like 200. Imagine playing Rock Band. Play a Rock Band game with 200 songs that all have full music videos that are well made.
That's the thing. It's like Rock Band is just the wussy version of every single Hatsune Miku game ever made, and no one will admit that.
Look,
it's disgusting, but it's true.
It's not Japanese, or it's Japanese, so it can't be good.
It's the mainstream copycat.
But I have a ton of really good memories on the PS Vita. Actually, it's the platform where I got Fez, and I really enjoyed Fez. Fez is not my thing at all, but I really enjoyed that game. Also, I remember playing Killzone Mercenary, which was like the first, like really impressive first-person shooter on the Vita, and it blew my mind just because it looked great for a handheld game, and it played really well for a first-person shooter.
Dude, I got Borderlands on PS Vita, and then never got another first-person shooter on that console again.
I'm so sorry. No, but Killzone Mercenary is a good example of like how to make a good first-person shooter, because there were a lot of them. They were all like spin-offs of other PlayStation properties that were all made by one developer, and all of them weren't very good, so they stopped hiring that developer. It was one developer, and they made ports. They made versions of like I think they did like a Resistance game. I think they also did something with there's something with like it was Resistance, and they also did a Call of Duty on it too. That wasn't very good. So they're like, all right, you guys stop doing this. Stop doing this to people. But
stop doing this to people.
What a shame.
It's a good console.
Such a good system, dude. Except for the back touch panel, that was really dumb. And
I forgot about that.
But like other than that, like that was such a cool system. It was really well made, and like it has some good games for it. And Sony just absolutely did it dirty in every
Yeah.
sense. It's
I honestly think if the Vita had been something akin to what the Switch is, it would have done so well.
Yeah.
Because like just the ability to plug it into a TV in any way, shape, or form. I think you can see from like the PS TV, which I don't know if anyone knows about this. It's a PS Vita that exists solely to be plugged into a TV to play games with a controller. It's got the same amount of power as PS Vita. It's just it plays them on a TV instead, and that's just bonkers to me because that thing does really well. I looked for it for like a year and it was just sold out everywhere. You couldn't get them, and I was like, wow, because I just wanted to play my PS Vita games on a larger screen. And it's like the first place where you could play a lot of the Persona games. Persona 4 Golden is just really, really good. Yeah, Vita.
They could never make a follow-up now, though. Nintendo just has such an iron grip on like.
Yeah, I think if they tried to do it now, they would fail because Nintendo's got such platform loyalty.
Yep.
And the Switch is such a good system in general that like it's got its issues, but I think that when people think of Nintendo systems, the Switch is going to be up there with one of the good ones, right? It's not going to be in the Wii U territory.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think that's really, really good. I also got to revisit some games that I played on the GameCube in their SNES versions recently with Nintendo Switch Online. So I played the original SNES versions of a bunch of games. I think Breath of Fire is one that I'd only ever played on the GameCube. It's an RPG series that's just very fun. There's all the Metroid games, pretty much. All the Metroid games that existed on GameCube aside from Fusion were basically just ports from the SNES versions. And the SNES versions retain a lot of the good audio that they originally had, whereas the GameCube kind of had issues with that.
Mm.
So it's really fun being able to go back and play those in their pure forms, as it were. Yeah, I think Nintendo's doing pretty well on that end, at least for SNES.
You want to hear a crazy, like, little... I guess, I don't know if I would call it hipster points to me, but my grandpa and grandma, whenever we would go over to visit, you know what they had for my brother and I to play when we were over there. Not only did they have a Sega Genesis, they also had...
Star Wars Plug and Play.
They also had the Sega CD that was attached to it, and they had the Sega 32X that was attached on top of it as well.
32X. Why does that sound familiar?
All in one beautiful package that my brother and I and cousins would play with sometimes. And it was an interesting experience.
Jeez.
Played like this 3D racing game. We would all huddle around this like horrible CRT and like compete with each other. And then one of my cousins was an idiot and had a magnet right next to it and screwed up the TV.
No.
Yep.
Fun with magnets.
But now I can say that I've played on a Sega CD and a 32X.
And I also want to bring up, so there is one game that I think is super weird that I think takes my nostalgia throne. Because I always remember it. I don't remember the name until now where I just looked it up. I literally looked up Old Mac Dinosaur Game.
Oh my.
And I don't know if anyone from that has ever played this. So it's a game called Nanosaur. And you're literally a velociraptor with a mech suit, essentially, and you run around with like a laser blaster. It's a super early 3D shooter.
Ryan,
I played so much of this game on my grandmother's Mac. Like, I think this was an Apple II, like not an Apple II, but the original like circle sphere Mac computer.
I totally forgot about Nanosaur.
Dude, Nanosaur was my childhood. Like, this was legitimately the only game I played for entire summers.
I just having an existential crisis right now.
My godfather had it for some reason. He would always come over, and my brother and I would always play. How did I forget about this?
It's because this game is super forgettable, but it's also incredibly unique because it's literally like there's like a meteor impacting you have to worry about. You got to go collect all the eggs. It's just a crazy game. You can do
competitive
backflips.
Multiplayer.
I don't think I ever played the multiplayer because it was never hooked up to the internet. You like explode Stegosauruses.
It was split screen. See, here's the thing. We played the second one. My brother and I played the second one, which is maybe why you didn't have more. I don't know, but like.
Well, I just played it on an original Mac with only one setup, so I don't think I ever tried it. It's the thing. I wouldn't know.
I have to find a way to play Nanosaur now. Hold on.
Now I'm gonna look up Nanosaur 2 and see if it's also if I played Nanosaur 2 as well or just Nanosaur. I feel like I have to have played Nanosaur 2 because I must have convinced people to buy it for me.
For reminding me.
Like this game is wild to the point where I'm like so tempted to just go back and reinstall this. I did play Nanosaur 2.
Is it on the App Store? Hold on.
I did play Nanosaur 2, but Nanosaur 2 is not as old. It's like a much newer thing. It's still old, but it's a weird experience.
Oh, you can't get it on. Oh, I think it was on the App Store, but then like it didn't. There was probably some like.
Yeah, these are super weird because they're like old Mac Store games.
Yeah, that is weird.
I do remember playing a lot of Flash games as well.
Oh yeah, I was about to get into those.
Computer.
That's right. There was a Mac store.
I mean, who could
Yeah,
forget?
there was a Mac Store. It was the
classics
first like big app store.
I was
Fancy
going
Pants
to talk
Adventure
about
is great.
Fancy Pants. Do you guys ever play? It's like it's the premise is that you're on Mars and you're like a little dome-shaped mining vehicle that has propellers in it. When you go up to fly out of the ground and you just mine downward.
Yes,
It's called Motherload.
I played Motherload so much.
Dude, I
Motherload was like the proto Minecraft for me.
Exactly. I remember getting yelled at by teachers in the classroom for using the computer in the back of the classroom to play it for too long during free time.
Because I think
like, you have to stop.
So for context for people who don't know like our general, we're not gonna say like our ages, but
yeah,
the general time we lie around is in between millennial and Gen Z, somewhere in that span. A little closer to the millennial side, I think.
The gray area.
So yeah, for example, like you know, when I was like kind of playing games, Xbox, the original Xbox was still a big thing, but the 360 was right around the corner.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Which I think made a lot of us grow up, especially with me. Like my parents had typically one generation behind tech stuff. At least growing up, now they're like my dad at least is huge into the breaking edge of stuff. He's always on top of that. But before it was always we had like essentially the old stuff. So I had a PS1 and 2. I don't know if I ever played the PS1 or not, but I know I played the PS2. I didn't have an N64. I had a GameCube, which was
never had a Wii. I was like one of like the two people in the entire planet that never had a Wii.
I played first it was Melee and then it was Brawl before school with my friend at like 6 a.m. every morning. We would
Gamer
play
time.
it.
I remember
like
going
every
over to
single
my
morning.
friend's
It was
house.
great.
I remember going over to my friend's house a lot to play Black Ops 1 online, and we would like both take turns playing.
I think it's super interesting because I'm wondering what nostalgia is gonna feel like going forward, because I think we have grown up with like what we would still consider boxy 3D games to where they look obviously dated now. And I think going forward, I'm going to be like, what's going to be the difference between a game that comes out now graphically and a game that comes out 10 years from now?
I think VR is going to be like the standard at some point. And I feel like that's when we're going to be much older and be like, remember when games were played on a flat screen?
On a screen?
Oh.
Dude, I want augmented reality to take off big time. That's like, I think, the most promising tech thing, because it has so many real world implications of also being able to be used as like a design thing for engineering and whatnot.
And so many different disabilities too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can help with.
So I think that'd be super interesting to see that kind of thing take off. I don't think flat screen games are going anywhere.
No.
Because there's absolutely going to be markets for people that just want to sit down and like play a game with friends, and that's a lot harder to do with VR.
Some people just can't play in VR. Like I still have a motion sickness problem where I can't.
That bar to entry is still
get the hang of it.
High. Like it's just not. It's getting there, but it's not ready yet.
Yeah, and I mean the Quest 2 is super cheap and it's coming out relatively soon, but it's still a thing where like you need to be pretty tech savvy to be able to use stuff like that and not concern yourself about issues popping up and know how to fix things. So I think stuff like the PSVR definitely helped. but the PSVR is such a kind of inferior experience to 360-degree VR that
Well,
I
and it's
wonder
always
if it's a really a good introduction to it.
it's always interesting. Like like even before I really got into games, what I loved was just looking at video game history. Like just
Absolutely.
it's so interesting because now it's like you have the big three. It's Nintendo, it's Microsoft, and it's Sony, and like that's kind of it, right? Like in terms of like the big dogs. But like, man, back in the 70s and 80s, it was like an absolute wild west. Like you had just so many different like companies making systems because they were probably not nearly as much of a nightmare to like manufacture and develop as they are now. And like, it's I don't know. I just find like video game history to be so interesting, and that's why like I haven't played a lot of older games just because of the way that I grew up, but I know a lot about them. You know, it's
There's a lot of them are just super interesting to like read about. I
Yeah.
love stuff like no-clip documentaries on older games. Just super interesting. Especially if you go back and play like old fighting games. Those are always huge like milestones for me as to like when did things like blocking get introduced to be like this is how
blocking.
games have changed.
no. And one of the Ryan, you were there. One of the one thing I've done while I was at college was I had this whole 3-piece presentation. Like I had 3 separate presentations about game narrative, and one of them was like the evolution of game narrative. It was so
Oh,
interesting to go back and like look at how video game storytelling has evolved. So like you kind of started with just like it wasn't even in the game itself. It was mostly like on the back of the box or in a manual. And then you had games like Ninja Gaiden, which was the first like really recognizable game with like cutscenes and stuff like that. And it's just cool to see like things the seeds that were planted back in the 80s and how they've kind of grown now.
Yeah.
So
And I always find it really interesting to look at like the ways things haven't evolved as well. Like what
Yeah.
was so good that it doesn't need to be replaced. Like the original Doom is still such a good game on its own that you don't really need to replace anything
Yeah.
with it.
or even things like
Stuff still gets made for that engine.
or even things like I feel like something that's incredibly like under appreciated for just how long it stuck around is the traditional D-pad. Nintendo
Yeah.
the had the control scheme down with the NES. It's like obviously there's more buttons, but like really that kind of like controller hasn't changed. You know, it's like if you look at anything that is a game controller and it doesn't have the traditional like you know cross you know that plus shaped D-pad that Nintendo's had forever, it's like no one likes it because it's not
weird, yeah.
it's weird. You know, like I just, as much as I love the 360's controller, that D-pad is probably one of the worst things ever to be put on anything on any kind of plastic product. It's terrible, and yeah, it's just like that thing's been around since like the 70s or like early 80s, and it hasn't changed because
It's primordial.
it doesn't need to. It's perfect.
Yeah. I don't know. I always think it's just really interesting to look at how games have evolved and how they haven't, and like what old games have kind of led to that. Especially in the case of things like Doom, Wolfenstein, Street Fighter 2 is always super interesting to think about. Just because it's basically shaped how every single fighting game plays forever, at least so far. Which I would be super curious to see how something like breaks away from that.
Or even how you know Combat Evolved was like that's the way you do first person shooters on a console. It hasn't changed. Like everyone's been basically you know it's changed and evolved, but that basic idea of like how to set up a first person shooter on a controller hasn't really changed that much since Combat Evolved. And there are so many games that have come out within the past 5 years that haven't done it nearly as well. It's kind of shocking.
Yeah, I was gonna say people have certainly found a myriad of ways to do it worse, which is really funny because my God, that game is getting old.
Yeah, you know, but like even if I'm not the biggest fan of like the original control scheme that it had, I prefer like in terms of button layouts, I prefer something like Call of Duties. But again, that idea of like using you know auto aim and sticky aim and that kind of thing and bullet magnetism, all that is still used. And that game came out in what was that 2003 2003, 2005, something like that.
Combat Evolved?
Yeah.
That's like 2000, 2001.
Hold on. Now I
Yeah,
need to
Combat Evolved is not super old.
No, but like considering just how quickly games do evolve,
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
many first-person shooters there's been, it's kind of shocking how we just haven't really evolved past that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm always curious about that because there are always games that kind of break that. The thing I'm still surprised we haven't really gotten in mainstream is another game based off of like Metroid Prime's control style, because it's still a first-person shooter, but it plays really differently, and I think it appeals to a different audience. So I would love to see more games take that kind of risk.
I think the biggest thing that time has given us is just speaking for me personally, but I think the biggest gift that time in the industry has given us is game feel and just how smooth games are to control.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For me, it's
that's
like,
the big difference.
I don't go back and play a lot of older games just because they feel so like clunky to me. And it's
Yeah.
like even people are like, oh well, the Mario games on NES feel great. No, I don't feel that way. And it's like a game needs to control really well for me, or I'm done.
Well, I think something a lot of people don't remember about the original Mario, and I think Mario 2 and 3 as well do this. I think by world they kind of weren't, but how slidey they are.
Yeah,
They're
are
super
like,
slidey. They're very floaty.
Oh yeah,
like
especially the original Mario game. I remember playing it at sort of like a video game history exhibit thing. It was like everything was an ice level.
It's kind of
Yeah.
hard.
It makes it really difficult to go
say,
back
but
to.
it's true.
And I think a lot of people kind of forget about that when they think about old Mario games, and they're still fun. It's just you got to get past that bit of confusion, which was why when I went back to play Mario 64 with this new collection, I was super surprised because Mario 64 doesn't feel like that. Like 64, it's still floaty, but that's just Mario in general. In platformer spaces, Mario is pretty floaty. Mario 64 is just super good. Like it's incredibly snappy. The only major dated thing about 64, I think, is the camera, because it was designed for a controller that only had one analog stick.
Yeah.
And I really wish that they had at least done some work in this remaster to make it a full 3D camera. But even without it, it's still a fantastic game that plays really well. Yeah,
There was
I
that
think super
period of
interesting.
like when the N64 first came out, and you had all of these like different, really well-known, popular franchises that were trying to make that 3D jump, and
Yeah.
just how many I mean, I remember looking up videos on like those two Castlevania games that came out for the N64, those like weird 3D platformers.
Yeah.
Or things like Metal Slug, and there's even like a 3D Earthworm Jim game. Both of those were just terrible.
And I missed the 3D Earthworm Jim game. That game was so unique.
Like I can't even imagine like what that must have been like for people in the industry who had been making 2D games for such a long time. Now it's like,
Yeah.
well, this is it. 3D, that's the standard. That's what you have to do now. And that leap must have been just insane.
They
I mean, I
called
think,
it the Dark Souls of game design.
Oh, please don't say that.
How could you?
So I don't know if anyone here has ever played or heard of a game called Mega Man Legends.
Yes.
I feel like I have.
Wait a second.
Haven't played it, but that's the 3D one, right?
That's the 3D one.
Yeah.
Is that the one where his suit had a morality system?
I think so. I don't remember, but I believe it is. So Mega Man Legends was like an almost RPG version of Mega Man that's 3D, and you have an open world to explore.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
it's
that's the one.
really surprisingly still very good.
Really?
Yeah, it's because it has a lot of like little touches of ways you can affect the world, and it's got hidden side quests. Like you can get different branching quests based on what you do. And it's stuff like if you don't get a soda can from the fountain and give it to this person, this side quest just won't appear because that person was never in the place to give that to you because they didn't have their soda. It's like little things like that I just love. It's a super cool game to learn about because of how weird it is and how kind of, I would say, ahead of its time, because it's an old game. and it plays surprisingly well. It's still got it was kind of big. This is how we should control third-person games, so it controls very strangely. But it's not necessarily bad. It's just you have to kind of reorient your mind to be like, all right, the last 20 years of progress in games didn't happen. And
like
instead we went down
controls.
this alternate history path of controls existing this weird way. Which is super interesting. It's just a very unique game that I think anyone who hasn't heard of it should definitely at least look up a video of it. Because of just... I think it's just so unique as a game. There's not really a lot of things that can compare to it. Who else has got some to hit us with?
Trying to think of some more.
Yeah.
It's weird for me because I'm in like a similar situation as Wyatt, but like I didn't get any sort of thing to play on until the Wii came out, which is like I missed so much as a kid. So right
Yeah.
now I've been kind of making a point to at least like I'm playing through a bunch of Final Fantasy games. I have a PS2 and I'm just I feel like I'm trying to catch up. So I feel like I'm like experiencing all the people like, oh yeah, this game was great when I was a kid, like
'Cause
however
it's
many
hard
years
to
ago. And
it's
it's
hard to say
like,
what's really
huh.
nostalgic when you're in that kind of situation where it's like I didn't
It's
start playing games until a certain point where like people wouldn't really consider that nostalgia.
yeah,
My
exactly.
age. It's bizarre.
Because like Galaxy was my first Mario game, and that game is still like top 3 most amazing games of all time on my list. Like that game is so good, and it's probably because it was my
It
first.
also
But even
still looks
still,
really good. For being on
I
a
think it's the
Wii
best looking
game,
Wii game.
it looks amazing. Like for me, I think there are definitely Wii nostalgia games because like Xenoblade Chronicles for me is a game I have a lot of nostalgia
Yeah,
for.
yeah.
And that was originally on the Wii, and it's just such a unique thing. And like Galaxy, I only played a little bit of on the Wii. I played more of Galaxy 2 because I think I didn't own my own copy of Galaxy. I played like a friend's
Ah.
copy, and then I got Galaxy 2 for Christmas one year, and so I played that, despite having not finished the first. So that was an interesting experience, and I'm excited to be able to actually play Galaxy now that I have All Stars.
It's so good. It's so good. I love that game so much.
I
And
don't
there's
think
also
I've-
like we haven't really touched on it too much because it's like a weird thing, but there's like it doesn't happen anymore because we're getting old, we're getting jaded. But I feel like
quiet.
there's like
I can't.
I'll give you an example. I in like elementary school, early middle school, um one of my friends was like, "Dude, come over. This game came out and I got it, and I know you don't play games too much, but I don't have anyone else to play it with, and it's awesome. And there's a whole you can go through all the maps without anything in it, and it could just be us just shooting at each other. It's gonna be awesome." And I was like, "Okay, cool. This sounds great. I don't know what I'm doing." And then like the music was great in the menu, and it's like, whoa, all this armor looks super cool. And then we would like go outside in his backyard and like pretend to be the characters from it,
Was
and it's
this
just
game
like,
in the
wow,
Halo series?
yeah, what a mysterious game. It's Halo 3, but I didn't know like, whoa, yeah, this is a Halo game, whatever. As a kid, it's like this is. Oh my god, it's like watching a Star Wars movie for the first time, not to get to the other topic of every podcast that we do. But it's like it's weird that we don't have that feeling of like this game is so new and mysterious and incredible anymore because I think it's just because we're not in
All
elementary
right,
school
I got
anymore.
a counterpoint to you for that.
Ooh,
So
We're also
I
in the
just
ready.
industry.
I
This is true.
just yesterday finished a game called Paradise Killer, which is this
Paradise
weird murder mystery indie game
Ooh.
about like
intrigued.
aliens that came to our planet. It's alternate history. They became gods.
Oh,
You now
sick.
you're like trying to solve the murder of essentially a religious murder cult that all died at once, and you have to figure out who killed them. And so it's a super interesting setup. Except the aesthetic is vaporwave.
Oh,
You play a main character named Lady Love Dies. There's a character
Oh
in the game
my.
named Doctor Doom Jazz. I finished this game
That
and was
character
left
sounds
with
like
that
a character from
feeling.
The Boys.
I was left with
Utterly
this
unique,
feeling
strange,
of like
and brilliant.
this is the kind of thing I wish happened more often, of games just being so unique that I can't compare them to something else aside from, like, I can say, oh, the murder mystery stuff is kind of like Phoenix Wright, but then that doesn't at all touch the barrel of, like, the fact that you walk around and talk to a teleporting demon named Shinji who constantly has his middle fingers in the air. Like,
this is good.
It's such a unique experience that I think you totally can get that now. It's just rarer.
I guess so. I guess it is just rarer.
Yeah, I think you just need to know what to look for, and look for things that you wouldn't otherwise play. Because I feel like a lot of people lock themselves into these boxes of, like, oh, I enjoy RPGs and I'm not going to play anything else. And then that leads you to be like, why am I not enjoying RPGs anymore? You probably just need to take a break and try something different.
Well, that was me for the longest time, where it's like the only thing I would play is shooters. Like, when I think of the two games that I played most, like, before I went to college, right? It was Halo, Call of Duty, and Battlefield. Those are like the three things that I would always play. And so definitely, like, since I've been coming here and I've been meeting a lot of people that have a lot of different tastes, I'm trying to, like, branch out more. I still will never play a JRPG unless it's called South Park. I can't do it, but I'm definitely trying to branch out more. But I did want to say something related to what Brett was talking about in terms of, like, you never have that feeling of, like, what is this game? I've never heard of it before. I feel like that feeling now, like, because we're older and because games journalism is so big now, I think the only way to get that feeling is to have a game come out that a developer is trying really hard to keep secret.
Or to literally go media blackout.
Yeah. So you have,
which
so
I've started to do with games. I used to be like, why would you do that? Now I get it.
Well, like, the two games that come to my mind that give you that same feeling of, like, what is this, is Breath of the Wild and Death Stranding. Because both of those games were so dedicated to not giving anything away, and they were both very vague about, like, their direction, the concept, what they wanted to do, right? And so when you played those two games for the first time, you were like you didn't really understand how the game, like how the game worked, because they were both so unique and they both did things very differently from other games. So you spent a lot of time, like, what really at the end of the day am I able to do in this world? And, like, what is this world and stuff? I feel like that's how you get that kind of feeling of wonder now, is when a developer is trying so hard to keep
I mean, it's also, a lot of people mention Morrowind as giving that feel of wonder and that you can't replicate it. I think Morrowind had a feel of wonder because the world was super unique. You rode giant, like, dune striders around, and they just haven't done that again. Like, it's not a thing of Morrowind isn't super unique. Of Morrowind is super unique, but nothing else is. It's just Bethesda has kind of locked themselves into high fantasy now and not touched any of the unique stuff since then. Which is why I'm super excited for stuff like Avowed, because Pillars of Eternity's world is just bonkers.
Ryan, Paradise Killer looks amazing.
Paradise Killer is an incredible game. It's one of those games, I finished it, immediately uninstalled it, and just went, that was incredible. I'm probably never gonna play it again, but that was an incredible experience.
I also just realized I bought not a decent amount of Mario games. I've never finished a Mario game.
Yeah,
I used to
one
there for the longest time. I did end up finishing Odyssey, which is still, like, the only Mario game that I've given a lot of time to.
I didn't finish New Super Mario Bros. I didn't finish Paper Door, or A Thousand Year Door, not Paper Door. I didn't finish Thousand Year Door. I didn't finish Galaxy.
Wow. Get to it.
Get cracking, you know? I have a copy of Thousand Year Door with me right now in a box. I don't have a GameCube to play it on, but I have a copy. So at some point, I'll have to hook up a GameCube and play through it, because I never have, and I own a copy of it. So I'm like, why have I not played this? I think Mario games I finished Odyssey most recently, and then I've finished 64 a couple of times on my DS. I never finished Sunshine. I'm going to, now that it's out, but never finished it when it came out. Barely played it when it came out. I think I finished Galaxy 2, but not Galaxy. Maybe. It's hazy, because I think Galaxy 2 didn't leave as big of an impact on me.
Before I forget, I also do need to mention that I do have a lot of fond memories of playing Battlefront 1 and 2.
Oh, absolutely. Like Battlefront 2 is incredible.
That's a video game.
It's also it holds up surprisingly well.
Yeah,
I wish I got into shooters earlier.
I'm the opposite. I wish I got into JRPGs earlier because now I'm playing them now, and it's like, man, I would have been such a smart kid if I had only made the right choice and started playing.
Yeah, I think
these
like
instead of Halo all the
legitimately, I can
time.
credit a lot of my interest to things like books and reading to RPGs that I played, and especially JRPGs that are super text heavy, like Final Fantasy.
It sounds dumb, but it makes sense.
Well,
It
it's because
really
you're
does when you
reading a
think about
novel's
it.
worth of words whenever you play a
Exactly.
JRPG, if not more than a novel.
It's so frustrating too for someone like me who, I'm studying
doesn't read.
narrative.
Sorry.
No, I was gonna make the joke eventually. It's fine. but no, in all seriousness, like as someone who is like studying game narrative and game writing, is really into like how video games tell stories, right? It's so frustrating for me for someone who mentally, for various reasons, can't sit down and read. Like even if it's something that's really interesting to me, it's very difficult for me to sit down and read something, and expect to pay attention, or not have to like get up and do something else. And I just wish that I had more patience for things like RPGs that have a lot of text and turn-based mechanics and stuff like that, because I feel like RPGs is one of those things where it's like that's where a lot of the great video game stories are. But for someone like me, I just can't get into them because I can't mentally, I can't sit myself down and read that much.
You could just like chill with someone else who is either playing it for the first time or is just knows how it goes, and then just hang out with them while they play the game.
Yeah.
I always find what's fun to do with that is have a new person play the game while a person who's played it like sit there, so you have someone to bounce things off of. And you're not getting, you're never like having a dull moment.
There's this weird part of me where it's like if I'm playing a single player game for the first time, especially if it's like a new IP or a new world that I never experienced before, it's like, no, I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to like turn the lights off and like just get put my headphones on and just completely just escape into it and not have anyone else.
I totally get that.
Distract me,
I think for me that mostly happens with new games, and if it's an older game, especially something I tend to try things once, and if I have trouble getting into it the first time, I'll let someone convince me, and then probably do it with them or like talk to them while I'm playing through it and be like, all right, what should I be avoiding? Because I think especially in the case of something like Xenoblade and a lot of the Final Fantasy games, there's a lot of just unnecessary text.
Oh yeah.
That just gets old, and even in the best ones, that's the case. Of like a lot of the times, it is just like super clever jokes and whatnot, but occasionally you just want to get to the next story sequence that actually is important to you. And I think like especially Xenoblade has an issue with that.
The older you go to, like, especially with Final Fantasy, there's just so much BS. Like, if you're going back to play something like 4 or 5 or 6 or something, you just kind of have to go in with the mindset that you are playing a SNES RPG, and you will feel pain when the game decides that you did not save 4 hours ago, and now you have to do it all over again.
Oh no.
That's the other big reason that I can't get into older games, is because they're so like unrelentlessly punishing. And I feel like I've talked about this before, but a lot of people like when their games are tuned to be really, really hard, and I get that. And that's definitely like an appeal to video games. But for someone like me, it's less about like the challenge of the game and more about like just experiencing the world and the character.
Well, it's also there were legitimate reasons for games to be that way, because it was about time, where you needed the person to play the game for X amount of time, so they felt like they got their money's worth. And the easiest way to get that to happen was to make it super hard.
There were both like time limitations and technical limitations. I get that, but like
the first like games that didn't do that were basically RPGs that were long without needing to be difficult, like Final Fantasy.
Well, I mean, Legend of Zelda had like one of the first NES games with like a battery backup, where you could basically save from anywhere, right?
I think.
And there's But no, it's just again, it's another reason where like I feel so disconnected from older games because it just has so many things that are so like make it or break it for me. It's like,
Well, you have a computer that can run like Minecraft on it, right?
at the most Minecraft, yeah.
Well, like I don't know how controversial of a topic this is. We might have to do a whole another stream's worth of dialogue about this one. But like one of the wonderful things about the emulation is that save states.
No, I understand, and this actually kind of leads perfectly into something else that I wanted to mention was I feel like remakes or like remastered collections of older games was made specifically for me in a way because I've been reading a lot about like they just released Mafia the definitive edition, right? And not only did they make have a whole new graphics engine, they make it look nice and pretty and modern, but they also changed a lot about the gameplay. It's a much better shooter now. The vehicle controls are a lot better, and it's like this kind of game, this remaster or this remake was made for someone like me who who is interested but can't get into those older games because of their age, and now they're being not only just visually upgraded but from a gameplay perspective they're also being changed. And so those kind of like remakes I'm so happy about because they're made for people like me.
It's
We're
becoming more of a
but
trend too, because Yakuza's been doing it with the Kiwami versions, where they essentially updated everything that was old enough to feel really dated into just brand new, like feels like a modern game. Which is why if you haven't played Yakuza, definitely jump in with 0 and then play the Kiwamis because they're all really good. And they show you like that series was working on some narrative stuff that was super ahead of its time when it comes to like voice acting and how the games play. It's just crazy to think about. We're getting stuff like Assassin's Creed games getting modernized.
Resident Evil.
Yeah, Resident Evil is getting the remakes that are really, really cool. Maybe Demon Souls. We'll see if there's any real gameplay changes in that. I hope so, because there are some systems in Demon Souls that I really just despise.
Really stupid.
Yeah, they're just very
Crash
dumb.
and Spyro have all gotten really great remake collections or remaster collections as well.
Yeah, I'm glad that's becoming a trend because it's more than just like new people being able to see the game. It's also like old people being able to experience the game as they remember it being really good.
Yeah.
It's like being able to play Halo 2 now and then play it with the remastered graphics and be like, yeah, this is like what I imagined it to look like while I was playing it.
Imagine being someone who's never played a Halo game before and they have almost every single thing Halo related in one disc or just on your PC.
It's a miracle.
Like I can't even imagine what that must be like.
It's wonderful. Especially if you haven't had an Xbox or something before, you now have the ability to play one of like the best gaming franchises there is in a really convenient form. At least now. It was iffy on launch, but now it's great.
Oh, it was a disaster.
Yeah.
But it's okay now.
But it is. No, but I mean, I feel like I've said this several times, but like it is probably the best like remastered collections of any franchise ever. Like not only is it probably the most comprehensive, but it's also had the most love put into it. Like they're not games that were like completely made in a new engine. That's different. But in terms of games that were you take the same code and you just make it look prettier, like it's probably the best collection in terms of
Yeah, they're super good. All right, so we talked about remakes. We talked about a bunch of stuff. Does anyone have other topics they want to cover before we hit our shoutouts? We're running an hour and 20 minutes right now. We're kicking to the end.
I don't know. This was like such a wholesome little like trip down memory lane.
Yeah,
that was the point. That's the point. It's for people listening to like imagine our experiences
and also trigger experiences
their
of
own
their
memories.
Yeah, go back and
even
play
if
Fancy
you're a
Pants
lot
again,
younger than
you
us, you probably have flash games as things that you remember, especially like students now.
Escape again. Well, yeah.
A lot of fun.
Play a little bit of Escape.
Little Big Planet. I know a lot of people will probably have nostalgia for Little Big Planet. No?
I know a bunch of people that do, but I
Never
I
played
have-
it.
I remember having a ton of nostalgia for a lot of mobile games when I first got an iPod.
Dude, Infinity Blade is weirdly nostalgic
Yes!
for me.
Oh,
Absolutely. I'm glad you
that's
said that to
one.
remind me of Infinity Blade before we ended.
I'm so sad they don't have them on the App Store anymore.
The thing that hurts to me with Infinity Blade, and for people who don't know about Infinity Blade, because it's not even available anymore,
All
is
you
it
have is
was
a
like
sticker
Epic
pack.
and Apple's collaboration to make a super cool mobile pseudo RPG. It's not really an RPG, but it's an action game for your phone that looked really good and it was the first game to use like swipe combat really well, where you would like swipe your finger along an enemy's sword to like parry them, and it was first person. It was super
That's
cool.
What's
And
great about it, though,
nothing else has done
sorry.
that nearly as well as Infinity Blade did.
And what's great about it too is that like it started off being very kind of like quaint in a way, but with 2 and 3 they just kept expanding on it. Like they kept doing such a
Yeah,
good job
Infinity
In a
Blade
good way,
3 had a
too.
book
Yeah.
come out about it, and it was a good book.
Yeah, no, it's like
Was it
they
3?
did all sorts of crazy things. Like they started adding different weapons, like alternate paths, and like just a more explorable like castle and
Yeah, I
stuff.
loved
3
finding
was
alternate ways
insane.
around
Yeah,
levels.
they basically
3 was
became Metroidvanias in like
3
a
was the
weird
one
way.
with a real big like fantasy story that referenced the past games that was really
Yeah.
interesting to me.
yeah.
Well, because 3 had like entire prequel and sequel novels. It was wild. And the thing is, they were actually
Ugh.
good.
Why do we have to bring this up now? I miss it again more.
And it's just so
How could
painful
you?
to me that Infinity Blade is literally just not playable anymore. You can't play it because iOS, if you have an updated iOS phone, it just doesn't work. And Apple is so like closed off in their ecosystem that there's not really any good versions out there that you could download on any other
Yeah.
device.
And even if it was, you know what the problem is?
What?
It uses the Unreal Engine.
Yeah, as well. It's also super
No.
interesting to think about with Epic and
Ooh.
Apple right now.
It was
And
an
again,
epic game.
We did
Like,
say this when we mentioned this case. It was going to go on for months. It's going on for months at this point.
Yeah.
The Epic and Apple thing.
More people have like hopped in, like or more companies have hopped in too. I don't remember.
Yeah, we've talked about most of them, I think. But it's
But
interesting
more,
seeing
yeah.
things like that happening. And speaking of nostalgia, we have breaking news.
Oh,
The original Farmville game is officially ending.
Oh
yes!
my god!
After 11 years.
Yes!
Oh my god!
It's
Finally,
ending.
the
It's not
end
even
to an
ending because
era.
they're not supporting the game. It's ending because Adobe is no longer distributing Flash Player,
The
Oh
end of
my
a
Wow.
god!
which is going to be
Wow.
like the end of an era because it means basically anything that only exists in Flash form will be not playable on modern browsers. You'll still be able to play stuff on older things, but Flash is like a legitimate security concern now. So, recommend not using it generally, but a lot of old games are still fine. But yeah, that's most of our nostalgia games discussion, I think.
Yeah.
Does anyone feel unsatisfied? Any last grievances to air?
No, I'm.
You know what? I want to say
That
one
was a
word and
good-
see what the
that was a
reaction
good
is.
fun,
I gotta say
yeah.
one word and see what the reaction is.
Okay.
Spore.
Eh.
Really?
I was never part of the Spore story.
Me
Spore
neither.
was weird in that it was also one of the only games I played because like I went from Nanosaur to Spore to Oblivion to World of Warcraft for a little while and then never played World of Warcraft again. Or
Wait,
pretty
has
much
anyone
any
here played
MMO.
Spectrobes?
Oh, I've played Spectrobes.
Oh,
Uh,
I've
is
got two
Spectrum?
words.
Why does that sound familiar?
It is a DS game.
Never mind.
It's
Never
a DS
played
game
that
about
on the
unveiling
DS.
like weird stuff. It was like you had to archaeologize dinosaurs, right?
It was like it was. Oh god, it was a weird sort of. It was half Fossil Fighters, if you've ever played that game,
Yeah.
with the sort of blowing and drill using mechanics to mine fossils and things like that. And then there was this this janky combat where you could have two monsters stand to either side of you, and you ran into enemies. It was
Alex, you want me to blow your mind right now?
yes.
There was a
Please.
sequel on the Wii called Spectrobes Origins.
Are you kidding me? Are
There's
you
another-
kidding me?
There's a game.
Brian, I'm going to come over to your room and I'm going to throttle you.
There was a game that came out in June of this year called Spectro.
Not
Boom.
the
Hmm.
Not the same. That was a dud,
not the
Wyatt.
same.
Here.
No.
You know what isn't a dud though? 2 words that'll strike fear to the heart of any serious gamer. Are you ready for this? Club Penguin. We've all
They
played
killed him.
it. Come on now. We've all
Oh,
done
everyone's
it.
played it. I mean, if you're around our age, you probably played Club Penguin as part of a class assignment at one point.
It's even
It was
The
never a
first
class
way
assignment.
I got
We played it a lot on our school computers.
my first foray into competitive gaming was the iceberg flip.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mine was also Club Penguin, except it was when they had that like ninja card fighting game or
Oh.
whatever.
Oh.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Oh.
I was there. I was there when it came out, man.
All right.
Wow.
I think we've officially hit the point where we need to end because we're going off the rails,
Tip of the iceberg.
and
Uh,
we're
I see I'm all
about
talked
exactly
out
at
and you
our
have me oohing and
time.
awing again.
Hour 25. That's a good point to go into shoutouts.
Oh yes,
this is true.
So we're gonna start at the bottom. We'll go with Wyatt. What's your shout out?
I'm always on the bottom. That did not come out
Family
the way I
Very
friendly.
nice.
Family
Let's-
friendly show,
let's
Wyatt.
move on.
And move up the rating.
I've got an absolute banger of a shout out for you. Are you ready for
Yeah.
this? All right. So, we all know that God of War Ragnarok is coming out. We're all excited. It was announced 2 weeks ago, however long ago that was? False. It was actually revealed last year, and almost no one knew about it.
Thank you for reading
You
the
know why?
thumbnail of the video word for word.
Oh, is that the thumbnail of the video?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Wyatt has
regardless,
become the clickbait.
Oh no!
your boy, my boy, Cody
Our
Barlog,
boy.
Corey
creative director-
Balrog. Corey Balrog, not Cody.
excuse me, creative director of God of War, released this massive string of tweets last year talking about the development of God of War. And if you take the first letter from each one of those tweets, it spells Ragnarok is coming. And almost no one knew about it. And I find that just to be the greatest thing.
That blows my mind.
What an
Yep.
Especially because
absolute
it's like a common way for video games to tease
Oh
things,
my
is
God.
doing that.
Yep. And no one, at least, look, I'm sure there's people noticed it, but it was not talked about.
Yeah,
at
definitely
all.
not.
Yeah.
I love when stuff like that happens.
Yep.
God.
That's,
I'm
That's
all about
insane.
puzzles. If
That's
you
the thing
didn't
was
know. That's
interesting
from
because
my
I don't
press
think there
release.
was ever doubt in anyone's mind that there would be a sequel to God of War, the
No,
new
of
God
course
of War. So
of course not.
that might
But-
have been
I
part
still
of
haven't
it.
played it yet.
It's
I need
wonderful.
to. I have it on my shelf.
It's very
Wait.
good.
I
don't Yeah. play
it either.
It's probably one of look, PlayStation's released a lot of great exclusive. It's probably one of them.
All right, is that you set your shout out,
Any-
Wyatt?
Yeah, just I thought that was really cool, and he's my boy, and I love him so much,
Yeah.
so much that I can't remember his name.
All right, I also got a banger to shout out. I'm gonna shout out. This is the game, the show where I shout out all the weird games that I love to play. There's a new game called 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. I don't know if any of y'all heard about this.
Gesundheit.
I had a stroke.
Not a
hearing those
whisper.
words.
So, has anyone here heard of the company Vanillaware?
Not at all.
So Vanillaware has made a few games. They made Muramasa Rebirth for the Wii and the PS Vita, which is a really good 2D action game. They made Odin Sphere Leaf Thracier for originally PS2, and now it's been remastered for PS4.
What was that name? Odin's Sphere, Leap of Fear?
Odin
Leaf
Sphere
Thracier.
Leaf Thracier. It's not an English word.
Oh,
It's a really good action game, 2D action game. Then they made Dragon's Crown, which is
Oh!
the like hyper proportionalized hack and slash for Vita
I do know that
originally.
are all of their name formats nouns? Noun?
Kinda.
Maybe.
And then they were quiet for a while, and they're working on something else as well. And I think it was 29 people from that studio formed a little not a sub studio, but they started working on a project called 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, which is this passion project that they've been working on, I think, for 10, 12 years at this point. It just came out, It is a sci-fi narrative adventure with like real-time tactical combat that explores the concept of having 13 protagonists for your game and being able to play them in any order you want. It's so cool.
Huh.
It's such a good game. And like it has these multiple timelines. It uses literally every sci-fi trope ever, and I mean that literally. It's got the tropes of cloning. It's got space.
Right, it has giant
aliens.
robots.
It's got tons of giant robots. The Sentinels are Gundams essentially.
It's a
all your
Gundam.
Protagonists are piloting these Sentinels, and it's just about like how they reach there. And this like final battle to save the planet. But it turns out there's tons of time travel shenanigans going on. It's an incredible game. I'm like 6 hours into it at this point, and I'm just like I'm left speechless. Like I just hit a point in the game where I was like, this is one of the best twists. That it's a quiet twist. It's just like one little bit of information just changes how you perceive every other character in the game. And
why must you introduce me to these incredibly amazing looking and sounding niche games that I have never heard of and now want to spend all my money on?
Yeah,
why
that
must
and Paradise
you do this,
Killer have been
Ryan?
like the
Why
highlights
do you
of
owe
my
money
month.
Other than to buy games, like
if not year.
Food, Wyatt, for food.
Oh yeah.
All right, Brett, it's your turn.
1 second, putting that on my list.
Uh-huh.
The ever-growing list. This isn't something I've been playing myself, but I'm watching one of my friends play Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, and it was one of those games where I like none of the trailers do it justice at all. Like I just kind of like looked at them and I was like, okay, this just looks like that Viking game, or whatever. But like, just even just watching him play it, it's like, how can you get like an entire game that just doesn't have or need any UI in it at all because the sound is so good? It's insane.
Yep.
It's mind blowing, and depending on where it goes, because we're not too far into it, and again, I'm only watching it being played, but like it might dethrone PT for the scariest
Ooh.
just thing ever. It is. I don't know. Has anyone else here played it?
I have. It's
PT
really,
or Senua?
it's really
Senua.
tense.
It is. Yeah.
You know, you take what could be an average game and you absolutely, completely perfect one aspect of it, and it's an entirely new experience.
Absolutely.
And it's also done amazingly by the people who did DMC Devil May Cry, which
It's-
goes
yeah.
to show they can make a good game. It's very
bonkers.
I mean, yeah. I mean, DMC wasn't even that bad. It was just not what people wanted. Is a good way to put it.
No, it's proof to the people who said that they can't make a good game. So no,
Yeah.
screw you.
All right, we ready to move on to Alex?
I guess.
Do it.
Oh. Let's see. I thought it was yeah. Shout out to my favorite. Well, pretty close to favorite. Probably shouldn't be a children's book author, Edward Gorey.
Explain.
This was a while ago that I went on a visiting family in Massachusetts, and we went to this town and we went to a museum about this author named Edward Gorey, and I have a book that I brought with me, which is technically an ABC's book, but every different one of the letters is a child by that name dying.
Oh my.
And it's illustrated in a very strange way.
I think I might have heard of that actually. Is it like weirdly like almost Tim Burton-y looking, the art?
Very much so. It is called the
Yeah,
Gashly
yeah.
Crumb Tinies.
Oh yeah, I've heard of this. All right, I think that's a good note to end on. We've had some fun shoutouts this week. As always, this podcast airs every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. on both YouTube and Anchor and pretty much every other major podcasting platform. We occasionally do a sideshow called Games Club. It's fun. We got a few up there. We got discussions about Last of Us and Last of Us Part 2. We're planning to do some stuff with the Batman games at some point, so we got some fun things
get around
planned.
Playing them.
But yeah, we got lots of stuff planned. Stay tuned.
Gaming.
Play games, you will.
I have a secondary shoutcast.
I mean,
Shout out.
the outro's playing if you want to give your secondary shout out while it's playing.
I know. I'm working on it. I would like to formally thank Netflix for taking out an episode of Community. I'm not.
It?